Okay, I'm just testing this out. I'm hoping to start a live stream on YouTube or maybe start a series of videos from my channel. The topic is going to be mental health, lots of different aspects of it. As a sufferer myself, I wanted to take the opportunity to share with you some of the difficulties that people encounter so often on a daily basis. A lot of people don't realize how severely mental health can impact you, but on some level, everyone is affected by mental health, particularly in the last 3 years since the world's been turned upside down and we had to adjust to that and then we had to adjust to it going back to how it's meant to be. Obviously, it's been a difficult situation, and a lot more people are now more aware how difficult mental health can be to live with, to deal with. But I know some people will still be less aware, and that's also what this is about, raising awareness of issues that some people may not be fully aware of. So I wanted to start posting regularly on my YouTube channel. I'm still figuring out how to like live stream. I think there are certain requirements that I don't currently correspond to, but I'm going to try because I believe I can post videos. So I'm going to try starting with this one. Um, I was going to start posting maybe every day or every couple of days just on different issues around mental health and also with addiction tendencies, people who are addicted. I've attended Alcoholics Anonymous sessions in the past. They didn't do much for me. I did at one point have a sponsor, but it didn't exactly work out. And at that point, I wasn't drinking heavily on a daily basis, which I have been now for, I'd say, just under 3 years, since the middle of the pandemic, basically. I turned to drink because I felt like I didn't have anything else in my life. I felt like it was a way of relaxing, a way of coping with all the stress and the alcohol. It took the stress away, and that's what I was aiming for. Um, I apologise if I keep pausing. I haven't done this before. I haven't posted videos online before, except Facebook, but not many. Not certainly not long videos, particularly no more than a couple of minutes. Um, but yeah, so a bit nervous. Yeah, so in terms of mental health, we are now in a place in the world where it's becoming more and more people becoming more and more aware of it, but it's still far from recognized on such a scale that everyone knows what people with specific difficulties encounter. I also have high functioning autism, Asperger's. I was diagnosed at a young age. I was 6 when I was first diagnosed, and I had a doctor. I wouldn't exactly call it therapy, but I had support. I didn't have, proper educational support growing up. I attended mainstream school, and it was extremely difficult. I was bullied very badly. When I was just after I was diagnosed with high functioning autism, I was given a statement. For those of you who don't know what a statement is, it basically means that when you're in school, you are entitled to so much extra help, so many hours of extra help a week to try and help you keep up with everybody else. It didn't achieve much in the grand scheme of things. When I was in secondary school, my first secondary school, I was extremely badly bullied, and I had to move school in my second year. I moved to another school a couple of miles away where I did make a couple more friends, but it was another mainstream school, and unfortunately, with the way social media is in this day and age, a lot of the people at my new school knew people at my old school, and well, they didn't say many nice things about me, let me put it that way, and I struggled to be accepted. I was different. I was singled out as being strange, labelled, and it doesn't do much good for you. At that point, my mental health was difficult, but I wouldn't say I was dealing with it particularly, if I'm being honest. I would say that it was slightly more under control until something happened. Generally, day to day, it was more under control, but I did have episodes when I struggled to control my anger, episodes when I would cry because I was nervous or scared, not being used to being in a certain environment. And it made it extremely tough because obviously people picked up on that too, and I was singled out for that as well. And they say kids never forget, and sometimes I think that's probably very true. I know I have an excellent memory. It's an advantage, but also a disadvantage because while I can remember lots of stuff that I'm interested in, lots of stuff that I like, it's also extremely difficult because I can remember in quite intricate detail all the things that have happened to me, and it makes it harder to move on from. It doesn't just go away, it stays with you, and you have to try and get past it. And since having more severe mental health issues, I've learned actually to use the negativity, the difficult things in my past to become stronger, but it's extremely challenging, and I have to repeat that. I have to repeat that strength, that thing of breaking down the problem that I had and using it to my advantage, using it thinking, well, this I didn't deserve for that to happen to me. So how can I use that negative experience to create a positive? And for me, the biggest way of doing that is with I have OCD. For anyone who doesn't know, that's obsessive compulsive disorder. I have quite severe OCD. I have done for probably at least 3 or 4 years. And when my OCD kicks in, when I think that I have to do something that I can't keep going, I can't enjoy something, unless I do something else, then I've recently taught myself to think of a negative event from the past and use it as a power to allow myself to get through that moment where the OCD feels like it's in control of me. And as soon as I use that negative experience and I use it as a sort of power to sort of get rid of it, to stop me from doing something obsessive or compulsive, I feel like it's more under control. I feel like I'm the one controlling it. It's not controlling me, but I do regularly, on multiple times on a daily basis, have to do that. At one point, I didn't do that. I didn't know that I was able to do that. I had to learn myself. I've had certain support from mental health services, but nothing really, remarkable has ever come of it. I think the only valuable experience I've been taught by any, medical professional is that at the end of the day, I'm the one that needs to make the efforts, and that is one thing I completely agree with. I think that's the only way that you can take control of it. Someone said to me that you can't beat anxiety, you have to learn to live with it. And I think that's right. I definitely think I have GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder. I've never been diagnosed with it, but I'm almost certain that I do have it because things make me nervous, things that shouldn't, on a daily basis. And learning to deal with that along with the OCD, is extremely difficult. It's harder than some people will ever know, because if you haven't experienced it yourself, then you don't have you don't realize that, it can be so difficult. You getting about with your life. You focused on something. You feel like you have purpose. You don't feel the need to do things just to feel like you're in control, that you're okay. And that in itself is probably one of the biggest challenges. And as I said, my mental health, it impacted on me severely during the pandemic, and it meant that I couldn't do the things that I used to. I actually had a nervous breakdown just before the pandemic, and because of it, I suddenly felt extremely limited to do things that I found easy before that. And it was accelerated, that difficulty. It was accelerated by the pandemic. I suddenly couldn't go out. I suddenly didn't have the freedom that we all deserve. And once it was over, once it began to end, I didn't get it back for a lot longer. It didn't just come back straight away. It took time. I had to build myself up. One of the things I'm most fascinated about, one of the things I love doing, is travelling on trains. And during the pandemic, I could not do that. And it meant that I had to, well, give it up in essence. I had to give up something that I loved. And by the time I got back into a routine, by the time I started adjusting again, first during the pandemic, not being able to do certain things, then after, it took almost a year after the lockdowns finally ended until I even got on a train, because I was so nervous. I stopped travelling on public. I don't drive, so I stopped travelling on public transport. My people I know drive. My mum drives, and we we would go out together, and I'd even be nervous going in a car after a while during the pandemic. And then I had to build myself back up with buses, then with trains, and when I finally did, it it took a while. It made me extremely nervous, especially that first time. I was panicking before I got on the train. I was so nervous, and it was only after a few seconds of the train starting to move that I finally realised that I didn't have anything to be scared of. But it was only I didn't it was a very short journey. There were only 3 minutes between stops, so I didn't feel trapped. But it took me a lot longer to get used to going on long distance trains again. I'm still not back to the level I was at before the pandemic, before I had a nervous breakdown. And unfortunately, I feel like I'm still quite a distance off. I'm learning. I'm getting on high speed trains again. I'm making progress, but it's still far from what it was, and that makes me upset, angry, frustrated at myself a lot of the time, but also at the world, because if it wasn't for what had happened, if wasn't so much misinformation, so much, scary stuff being put out in the news, in the media, I don't think it would have got that far. But you see all these things that happen, and with anxiety it's irrational, and you start thinking that these things could happen to you, and in reality they could, but the fact is there's a bigger chance that they won't. And that is something that's harder to deal with, harder to hang on to. So most of the time I took the easy option, but I finally started learning to to just face your fear, just to get on and try. And not making much sense here, but I've learned how to adjust again. I'm finally starting to adjust to how it was before we had all we had the lockdown, we had the pandemic, and it's taken me, it feels like a very long time. It almost feels like forever, and I wish it didn't, because I can still remember how easy it was before, but since then so much has happened. and I'm trying to get back to how I was before, but it's taken a lot of time. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop there. I've been recording for 15 minutes. But yeah, I'm hoping that I can start to, post to to talk about how mental health has affected me, about how Asperger's affects me, about how the pandemic has affected me, alcohol dependency. I want to talk a lot about issues like depression, anxiety, OCD, obviously generalized anxiety, and obviously alcohol dependency or alcoholism, because it's all things I'm personally experiencing even now, and I want to share my views and to show people that they're not alone. I know for certain that there will be thousands, if not millions, of people going through the same thing, and you know, they find it hard to admit it, they find it hard to talk about for any reason, for how they live their lives, not wanting to appear weak, not wanting to admit to something, but whatever the reason for not talking about it, it's never something that you should be ashamed of, because it's an illness. And someone once said to me, if you had a cut, if it was hurting you, if it was a bad cut, you'd want to go to the hospital. Well, mental health is just as bad, if not worse. And it hurts people. It's hurt me. It still does. And I want to start sharing my experiences, because I've kept them hidden for so long. Again, myself, I've not admitted it, but when the OCD is so strong, sometimes people have noticed it, and I'm ashamed of it. I still try and hide it. I tried to hide it for so long. Just to be clear, I'm not ashamed of it now, because I know it's an illness, and I know that it's something that tries to control you, but it doesn't. It never does. You control it. It's a state of mind. It's irrational, just like fear. It's something that makes you think you can't live the same life as someone else who may not have these issues, and it is horrible. It makes you, I mean, I've been suicidal many times. There are times when I don't want to get up in the morning. I hate it. I hate life. I can't see the point of carrying on. I can't see the point of people who have children, and I still can't. I don't understand it. With how things are in the world, I still don't understand a lot of it, but I want to talk about it, because the people who are struggling, the people who have no choice, I want to do it for all of us, to show that we're not alone, and we never will be if we talk about it. It's important that we do. So I'm sorry, I've just talked non-stop for nearly 20 minutes, but I'm gonna cut it off now. But yeah, as I say, I will be covering, I hope, as long as I can start to post videos, I would like to cover a lot of mental health issues that I've encountered myself, and also issues with alcohol, because I do have a drink problem. I wanted to drink, I knew I did. I don't know whether it makes me happy in its entirety, but I know that it helps me. People tell me that it doesn't make me feel better, but I felt pretty crap before I started drinking, so as far as I can see, maybe it has done me a bit more harm, I don't know, but at the end of the day, I drink, I get mood swings definitely because of it. I don't like talking to people. I have to control myself. I find the easiest way when I'm feeling like this is to either, to try and talk passionately and turn the aggression that I can feel inside me into passion. Talk about good things, talk about things I'm interested in, and try and channel it out. or if I feel like I can't, then I don't talk to people. I try to say as little as possible, and that way I don't offend people. I've had to learn that the hard way, because I know I have offended people, and I have to learn not to, and it's extremely difficult, especially when you feel like that. But yeah, anyway, I keep saying I'm going to end it, so I'm going to end it. But yeah, I hope some people get to see this, and I would really enjoy it if people would, watch my videos, try and understand, and obviously for those who are struggling, then I really hope that somewhere I can make some difference, even if it's just to one person. If I help one person with mental health issues, with these problems, then I really hope I can. Anyway, thank you. Hopefully I'll get a bit better at this. Hopefully if I keep going. Thank you.